Hi everyone, and welcome to WP Quickies. Let me just get rid of this. Hi, I'm Will Brown. Welcome to WP Quickies, a series bite-sized words, tips and tricks in 30 minutes or less. So in this lunchtime WP Quickies, I'm going to be looking at Lottie Animations. So I decided to squeeze one last of the WP Quickies in for this year. I was actually meant to be filming. So this was going to be some video shoots for Elementor, and I was going to do this little WP Quickie down in the CBD in my office, but unfortunately things didn't work out, so we'll have to reschedule that for January. But I thought I'd go ahead with the WP Quickies and not cancel it altogether. And so let me know who you are and where you're from in the comments down below. Click on buttons like bells and subscribe, if I'm broadcasting thumbs up as well. And that'll just help everyone to hear about the WP Quickies. That'd be fantastic. And just while people are connecting, we've got a Facebook group, so remember to join the Facebook group there. So you can search for WordPress Sydney Meetup in Facebook. This should be broadcasting live into that group just now. And just a little bit, if you are watching in that Facebook group, if you can click on the streamyard.com/Facebook in one of the browser tabs, and that kind of links your Facebook avatar up with StreamYard, which is the tool that we use to broadcast, just so I can see your little face there. Otherwise, you come through as an anonymous link. So we've got Jean. Hi, Jean, from the Central Coast. We've got Julia as well. Hi, Will. Hi, Julia. Hope you're having a good time. Hope all the presents are wrapped up and under the tree already. As usual, all the links for these WP Quickies, I'll put them in the video description after the stream, so you'll be able to get those links to the presentation and all links that I mentioned as well. And if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll try my very best to answer them. So let's go into this one. Let's get stuck into the talk. So if you haven't heard about Lottie Animations, and I hadn't heard about Lottie Animations until about a year ago, they're quite fun to work with, and they're quite useful, not just in WordPress, but also for presentations as well. And you'll see throughout this presentation, I've used them quite extensively, probably a little bit too much, but hey, it's the topic, so why not? And it is Christmas. So let's have a look. What are Lottie Animations? Well, these things here, these are the sample animations that you can get. There's heaps of them. There's hundreds and hundreds. A Lottie animation is basically a JSON, so that's a JavaScript object notation, a text file basically, based animation file and format, and it enables designers to ship animations on any platform as easy as shipping static assets, because they're really just a file for there. Oh, we've got Rick, greetings from Florida, USA. Thank you, Rick. Thanks for joining me. Yeah, so these little JSON files, they're really, really cool. They're small files that work on pretty much any device. All modern web browsers, including the mobile ones, are going to be able to run these Lottie animations. And the beauty of these is they scale up and down. So they're not just movies where they might blur on a small device or blur on a big device. They're scalable vector graphics. So, they basically scale up and down beautifully on desktop, tablet, and mobile devices as well. So regardless whether you're on iOS or Android or Windows systems. Now, Lottie, it got its name from, I'm just going to read this one, Charlotte Lottie Reiner, who's a German film director and the foremost pioneer of silhouette animation. So that's what these were named after. Where can you find them? Well, the best place to go and find them is a website called Lottie Files. So lottiefiles.com. And there's a little snippet from their homepage. It has changed since I last put together this presentation. But on this website, you can find some free to use Lottie files, or there's a marketplace as well that you can browse, and they have premium animations there that are for sale. But there's heaps of free stuff there if you just want to get started as on the animation files. Now, on this website, so on the Lottie Files website, you can also hire animators. So those people who have contributed to the Lottie Files website with their animations, you can hire them for custom work. So if there's a particular logo that you may want animated, or if you've got like a series of stuff that you want some custom branding with, you can find the animators on there and hire them for custom jobs for special things that you want designed. And I think that's a great idea. It's something a little bit different, a little bit unique as well. And also, if you're a designer, so if you're one of those design people, then you can create an account on the lottiefiles.com and upload your own Lottie animations to the marketplace. So it's another area where you can maybe find some monetization if you're a designer for those. So again, have a look at lottiefiles.com. That's where you'll find all these animations to download from those. How do you make the Lottie animations? Well, if you're a video designer, if you're a designer for these types of things, then basically you're going to be using the Adobe After Effects tool for that. Now, the Lottie Files website only mentions Adobe After Effects. I'm not too sure if there's third-party plugins that supported by other animation tools, but certainly the lottiefiles.com website just mentions Adobe After Effects, and they have a particular plugin that plugs into After Effects that allows you to compile and render and output these Lottie files in the JSON format. So there's a link to that. And again, all the links will be available after this broadcast. So what can a Lottie do? Well, the Lottie plays your animation on the web or mobile devices. Excuse me. Sneezing today. So obviously, these are animations, so you can play animation on your web or mobile devices, while still maintaining really high quality because they're scalable, they're vector scalables. Now, a Lottie can also have smart settings that can allow your animations to be kind of interactive, but that capability depends on the player being used. There's 2 or 3 different types of Lottie players out there at the moment. Now, unfortunately, at the moment, you can't have clickable hotspot areas within a Lottie file. Hopefully, that's on the cards because that would be absolutely amazing. But what you can do is you can trigger the animation to play on JavaScript events such as hover, mouse overs, clicks, scrolls, things like that as well. So some examples of Lottie animations, well, I mean, there's heaps. I love these 2 dancing pigs here. But there's lots and lots of examples on the Lottie Files website. Now, these Lotties here, I use them sometimes in my presentations. These are not JSON files because, unfortunately, PowerPoint and Google Sheets, they don't support this Lottie extension at the moment. Hopefully down the road they will. But these here are embedded GIF files for these. Now, when you're on the Lottie Files website, really for your website, you're going to want to download those JSON files because they're small and optimized for website. But if you want to include them in presentations and docs and PowerPoints and Google presentations, things like that, then there's an option on the Lottie Files website when you're viewing these little animations to download them as GIF files or MP4 videos as well. So it's not just the website that you can use them on. It's you can jazz up your presentations like these as well for those. But certainly, if you're using them on your website, you really want to be downloading those JSON files within your websites for the speed and scalability. Let's have a quick look at one of the JSON files, and it is what it is. So here's an example of part of a Lottie JSON file, as it basically just appears as what would look like a garbled mess of characters. But these files contain instructions for the Lottie player to render and to play the full animation from there. Now, these Lottie animations, they're open source, as is the Lottie player. So it's an open source JavaScript library, and it does all the heavy lifting, and the player runs in the local PC's browser. So there's no server resources required for this. So it's purely animated and rendered in your user's web browser, which is fantastic. So from a technical perspective, Lottie files are animated SVGs, scalable vector graphics, and the JavaScript player, the Lottie player that sits behind that, it handles the SVG rendering and the animation for these Lottie files as well. So because they're really scalable, because they're SVGs, then they do scale up or down really, really nicely between all the different devices. I think that's fantastic. So if you are a developer and you want to help contribute to the open source Lottie player, there's the URL at the bottom. So it's on GitHub under github.com/LottieFiles and then Lottie-player. So you can view all the different files there, or you can contribute to that if you want to extend that as well. So that's definitely an option if you're a developer. Go and have a look for those. But how to add Lotties into the WordPress. So there's several ways that you can add Lottie files to your website, depending on where you're coming from and depending on your skill level and flexibility as well. So the first one, as always, is code. So I'll get rid of my selfish there. So you got that full link there, which I'll add into the video description after this stream. So a few ways to add Lotties in. This one is code. So if you're a developer, you can embed the Lottie player into your page templates. Now, there is an excellent blog article, and that's what the URL is there for at the bottom. It's actually on the Lottie Files website, and it shows you how to embed an animated submit button into your contact form 7. Now, a lot of people use contact form 7 because it's absolutely free. And just using like subtle animations like those, like a button that's animated, can really help to enhance user interface for things like that. So if you're interested in looking at the code and being able to do that sort of stuff, like animate buttons when you do things like click, then that's a great article here. I'm not going to cover all this kind of code because it's quite in depth, but that article there covers all that particular code-based embedded for Lotties there. So have a good read of that if you're a developer. The second way to do this is, of course, plugins for there. And there are a few plugins, a handful of plugins that allow you to add Lotties into WordPress, but probably the best one is this one here. So it's in wordpress.org/plugin repository, and it's just called Embedded Lottie Player. And we'll have a look at that, towards the end of the presentation. What this one does, it just adds a single Gutenberg block or block editor block for you to drag into your poster page and then load in the Lottie file with that as well. Now, when you are loading in Lottie files, because the Lottie files have an extension .json, the WordPress media file doesn't recognize what that is. So if you try and upload a .json file into your WordPress media library, it's going to say unrecognized file type. So you're going to have to use something else, something in addition, to get those files into your media library. We use this little plugin here. And it's in the WordPress org plugins repository as well. And it's called WP add mime types. And basically what I'd like you to do, once it's loaded in, once it's enabled and activated, then you'll see in your settings, you've got an extra entry called mime type settings. Go into there, scroll down the bottom and add this one line in here. So JSON space equals space application / JSON. Save that, and then you can drag and drop .json files into your WordPress media library. So you need to do this first before you use this use the plugin, the player plugin. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to add any of those Lottie files into your media library. So go ahead, do that, add this mime type, save it, and then go and drag and drop your JSON file into the media library. And then let's flip back to the next thing we'll have to do once you've added the JSON file in. So this is in the media library. Once it's in the media library, click on it, click on the attachment, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see some details about the attachment, and then you'll see file URL. And there's a little button underneath that called copy URL to clipboard. So click on that, and that copies the whole URL of that particular file from, that's embedded in your website, and you'll need that for the player. And here's the player here. So go over and choose the block, search for the block, type in Lottie, and it'll come up with Lottie Player. And there's that little logo, little S logo. Drag that onto your page or post canvas. And then on the right-hand side, the block properties, you'll see there's a Lottie JSON file URL. And that's the URL you copied from the previous attachment one here, the copy URL to clipboard. Paste that in there, and then the Lottie Player should start to show that little animation there. And there's lots of little tools there, little options for the blocks as well. You can show the controls, so the player, or you can hide them. You can enable it to loop round. You can reverse the loop as well. It's called bounce. So you play all the way to the end and then you reverse it as well. And you can enable autoplay as well. And you can change the different count steps and the speed as well of the animation. So you've got quite a lot of control over this one little animation and how you want that to show and embed into your page. So that was with the block, the Lottie block player. But there's another way. So if you are a Elementor user, specifically an Elementor Pro user, then Elementor Pro comes with a Lottie player element embedded. So go ahead and edit any page with Elementor. and search for the Lottie element and drag that onto your page canvas. Now, you'll get an initial security warning, which my head is covering there. Let's get rid of that. So you'll get an initial security issue, and it's the same one that WordPress displays to you when you try and drag a JSON file onto the media player without having that little plugin installed. And it basically tells you that JSON files, it could contain malicious code, and that's quite right. It's a plain text, so people could embed horrible stuff in there, but we're assuming that we've all got WordFence or iTheme security installed, and that's all good to go. And so it does flash up this warning that you have to enable. But once that's enabled, then Elementor itself actually handles the uploads of the .json files into your media library. So you don't have to install that WP MIME types plugin if you've got Elementor Pro. Once you've enabled this uploads, then Elementor itself will handle all the uploads into the WordPress media library, which is quite cool. So once you've uploaded your Lottie, it's fairly simple. You've got upload within the Elementor element there, and you've got all these different controls as well down the left-hand side for Elementor to control the animation. Very, very similar to the blocks. You've probably got a little bit more control if you've got the Elementor Pro element for there. So you can choose things like the viewport sizes. Again, you can choose the speed. But you can also choose to render it as an HTML canvas element. So if you've got some problems with SVGs, perhaps you're developing a page that doesn't particularly support SVGs or a particular type of browser, then you can always switch to the HTML canvas element and get it to render it that way as well. It's not quite as nice as the SVGs, but it gives you that compatibility issue as well. So the last way to embed Lotties onto your WordPress website is that you can actually use this embedded script here. So this is on the Lottie Files website /web-player. So you can choose the URL of your Lottie from here. And again, you've got a few controls here of how you control the animation and the web size as well that's going to take up. And it generates this little bit of code for you down the bottom there. So there's a couple of lines of code that you'd want it to grab in and put the script maybe in the header and then embed that bit of code on the particular area of the website that you want to do that. And you can do that with a Gutenberg HTML widget. So you can drag an HTML widget in there and then just drop that little bit of code, and that'll generate your Lottie animation in that particular place that you want it to be output on your page. So there are heaps and heaps of options on how to embed Lotties onto your WordPress website. So there's the code version if you want to do it DIY. There's the embed version there using the player. There's the widget, the block editor block widget from there. And if you're an Elementor Pro user, then there's an Elementor Pro element specifically for Lottie there. So lots and lots of ways of being able to generate that within your WordPress website, which I think is fantastic. A couple of questions that I've had when dealing with Lotties and client websites. I get this question: will Lottie animations slow down my website? Not really, not by much. Most Lotties you'll find on the Lottie Files website are under 200 kilobytes, and that's pretty small. And they should be easily cached because they're static files, like an image or like a CSS file or like a JavaScript file. Then they can be cached by the browser. They can be cached by Cloudflare. They can be cached by your WordPress cache plugin as well. And that allows you, the web server, to serve it super easily directly to your web browser. So the Lottie player as well. So if you're using the block editor player, it's around about 500 kilobytes as well. And again, static files, so they can be easily cached by the browser, by the server as well. And because the rendering of the animation is done within the client web browser, then it's not going to affect your website speed or your page speed at all. So will it slow down your website? Not by much. Tiny little bit, but I think for the visual effects, for the great user interface experience you're going to be adding, I think that's well worth that little bit of download hit that you're going to have on your page speed. So it's pretty much negligible, I think. Another question asks, how many animations should I add? And I always kind of rebut people when they ask me, how many animations should I add on a page? I always say, if you need to ask yourself that question, then you probably have more than you already need as well. So I'm thinking 1 or 2 animations per page. I like to be subtle. So maybe like one animation per page, maybe another one down the bottom somewhere if you want to draw someone's attention to a particular part of the content. What you don't want to do is have everything flashing all over the page, because that's just going to give your web viewers a headache. It's going to put them off that web page. So use them subtly, use them appropriately for those. So that's it. That's my introduction to adding Lottie Animation to your WordPress website. Go and have fun with those. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over. We've got a little bit of time left. Yep. So I'm going to flip over and see if we can get just a little bit of a quick demo, show you how easy they are to use. So here we are. I'm going to put that in full screen, put me down there. In fact, I'm going to hide myself. There we go. So this is one of my little demo sites that I like to use. Put that in full screen for you. So here we are. I've got this WP Add Mind Types plugin installed and activated. I'm down here in the settings for that particular plugin. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and this is where it allows you to add different values. So I've just put in here JSON equals application / JSON and save that. And that allows me to then add stuff into the library. You can see here I've got my astronaut.json file that I have uploaded previously. And this is the one that we're going to use for the animations. I'll just bring myself back. So go into your pages, add a new page. Oh, yeah, this always comes up about Gutenberg. Go away. Thank you. Give it a page title, Lottie block. And then we choose our block in here. So this is the Lottie Player Block plugin that I've already talked about. So we'll click on that to add it to your page canvas. Oh, I should have done a step before then, shouldn't I? I'll save this as draft. I'll go back to WordPress. And in the media library, I want to open this out and copy this out here, this URL. And then I can go back into my page. Lottie block. There we go. Click on the block, and in here, in the file URL, we can just Control V, sorry. And then we've got this little Lottie, and that's the astronaut one that I picked out from the Lottie files below. So a few controls. Here you got your styles, so you can change the width of it and automatically change the height as well. You got a few control styles as well. For those, you got the icons color. You can do colors on hover as well. But the player itself, you can hide those controls, if you don't want the user to be able to interact with those. Obviously, enable autoplay, so you can have that playing when they come in. The loop, so I've got it on the loop at the moment, but if you just got a static one that's maybe just pointing to something, you can just have it as a single run. And hover as well, so you can enable hover actions. So you can have it do things like bounce as well. So it plays it and then it renders it backwards, which can be a nice effect. So fairly simple controls. You can control the speed, the count step as well. For those, you can play it 1, 2, or 3 times if you want. So not a lot of controls, but you don't really need that many controls, I don't think, if you're doing animation for those. So that's the Lottie block if you're using the Gutenberg editor, which I'm kind of using more and more in client websites. But if you want to do one with Elementor as well, let's just create a new page. I'll call it Lottie Element. Take the draft. And then edit the page. So I've got Elementor Pro installed in here, and it does need the Pro license to have that little widget in there. So search for the element, Lottie, and this is the Lottie element for Elementor, so it's got that kind of swoosh to it. So drag that onto your page canvas. And again, you're going to need to upload the icon or choose it from the media library there. And again, Elementor handles that kind of security part about the JSON file. So insert that here. And again, here we've got the element in there, and you've got all your controls for here as well. So down the settings again, so you can change a different trigger on scroll or on hover or none for those. You've got your loop control, which is going to play it for there. And then you can do reverse, so you can play it forward and then backwards again. And here again, we've got the SVG or the canvas. So you can see how the canvas is a little bit smaller for there. Of course, you can change the height, but I think the animation is not quite as fresh looking with the canvas as is with the SVG for those. I think it's a lot clearer with SVG. And you can lazy load this as well. So you've got it down further on the page, even although the JSON files are not so big, you can lazy load all that stuff together. So super easy, and you've got your styles that you can choose. You can choose your opacity and stuff like that you want to control completely for those. And you've got your advanced stuff if you want to start to bring in your Elementor elements, so like your transformations, your motion effects as well for those. So easy to do with both the Gutenberg plugin and the Elementor Pro element as well. So super easy to control for those. There's a couple of questions down here. Let's have a look and see what we've got. Shane says, any recommendation on a graphic designer with Lottie experience or where to look? We were thinking Fiverr. That's a great question, Shane. I've not looked on Fiverr.com specifically for Lottie Animations, and so I can't say if there's any people on there specifically. I'm sure there will be, but at the moment, if you go to lottiefiles.com, I've just dropped that in the comments there. So lottiefiles.com, that's kind of the central hub for all these animations. And there's an area on there that says, hire animator, I think, or hire graphic designer. And that's the people who have registered themselves on the marketplace. So you can have a look in there. So you'll definitely be able to find someone on there. But again, Fiverr.com, I'll have a look into that and see if there's any people. I presume there probably will be. But if you don't get anything that comes back to Lottie specifically, then you want to have a look for people who are good on Fiverr.com with After Effects. So if they're good in After Effects, Adobe After Effects, then you can point them to this plugin. And then once they've got their animation rendered, then they can just output it to this little JSON file, the Lottie file, and you should be good to go with that. Julia says, if for any reason a Lottie doesn't display, will it show as a static image or a broken file? It won't actually. What the player will do, it just won't play anything at all. So you'll have an area that's not rendered for those. I need to have a look and see if there's a fallback. Actually, that would be a fantastic addition to add to the open source player. So that might be something I might do over the Christmas break, is to add like a fallback thing for that. So yeah, great question. I need to have a look and see what happens when it doesn't, if the URL goes missing. That's a great question, Julia. I shall look into that. John says they're so easy and they're so small. They are. They're fantastically small. Tell you what, they're not small when you export them as a GIF. So all these GIFs that I'm showing you in the presentation here, they're coming up for probably about between 3 and 4 megabytes, I think, if you export them as a GIF file. But the whole idea is these are JSON files that you're going to put into your website and not their presentation. So yes, the Lotties themselves are really small, which is great. Do I understand correctly? If using Elementor Pro, you don't need the extra MIME types plugin. That's correct. That's correct. So if you're just using Elementor Pro, then that little element, it handles all the uploads for you. And can you customize the Lottie colors in Elementor Pro? You can't actually. So the animations are kind of set as they are. Well, I'm saying you can't. Actually, you could, but not within the Elementor Pro element. So it's going to have to be done at the CSS level. Because these are SVGs, scalar vector graphics, then they're embedded as SVGs on the web page, which means that you can set a CSS ID for that particular Elementor element, and then target that with CSV. So CSVs have very hierarchical CSS, so you should be able to target individual elements within the SVG group and to be able to change those. But it's probably easier to do that on the Lottie Files website. So the Lottie Files website allows you to customize some elements of the animation, and it's really dependent on the ones that the animator is allowing to customize. Otherwise, yeah, it's going to be down to CSS to change those SVG files. Yeah, great question for that. Let me see. I think that's it. I'm just going to kick out a couple of people who are spamming on the comments. Block users. Bye. But that's it for today. I've done my 30 minutes. I've done the very last WP Quickies of the year. No more for 2021, but I'm going to be continuing them for 2022. That's some of my details up on the screen just now. Happy to connect with you. I'm usually on LinkedIn, mostly on LinkedIn, sometimes on Instagram and Twitter as well. But if you haven't done already, please do contact me, get in contact with me. One last question from Rick asks, then you can add another element to the sample page. Great for demo without distractions from the rest of the website. It is a great little animations there. Jean says, thank you for all the WP Quickies and Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to all you guys as well. Hope you have a fantastic Christmas. Happy 2022. I'm going to see you back in 2022. I don't have a start date, but keep an eye on the meetup.com website and I'll post those dates for you. And so thank you guys. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, John, as well. Happy New Year to everyone. Stay safe and I'll see you in 2022. See y'all.